All right, welcome back. Today we are going deep, really deep. We're taking one of the most mysterious, most powerful verses in all of Scripture, and with the Zohar as our guide, we are going to decode the literal source code of reality. We're talking about the four primordial states that existed before there was a before.
So here's our roadmap for this journey. We're going to start with the primordial blueprint to understand the raw materials. Then we'll look at the divine forces, the four governors, that manage them. From there, we'll translate it all into a cosmic operating system and even look at it as a game of creation. And finally, we'll see how it all comes together to turn total chaos into a perfectly ordered cosmos.
And here it is, the verse that comes right after in the beginning. On the surface, it sounds like it's just describing emptiness, right? You've got Tohu, formlessness, Bohu, this void, Choshech, darkness, and Ruach, a spirit or a wind. But the mystics, they tell us something absolutely radical. These aren't just pretty words, no way. These are four distinct substantive states of being, the actual building blocks of everything, just waiting for the architect to get to work.
And that is the billion-dollar question, isn't it? If these were the raw materials, who drew up the blueprint? How did these four seemingly chaotic states get organized into stars and planets and life and even our own consciousness? Well, the Zohar gives us a stunningly precise answer. It gives us a hidden key that unlocks this entire divine architecture. And that is exactly what we're here to explore.
Okay, so let's get into it. First things first, we've got to unpack these raw materials. Before we can even begin to understand the system, we need to get a handle on the components. We have to define these four primordial states, not as what they're lacking, but for what they are, each one a unique dimension of unexpressed potential reality.
So first up is Tohu. The Zohar describes this not as nothingness, but as this infinite gray fog of just pure, unbound potential. I want you to imagine every single possibility that could ever exist all at once, with no form, no definition, nothing to tell one from another. It's the ultimate what if before you get to the what is. It's pure, unstructured information. So how do you build anything from infinity? You can't. You have to set a limit. And boom, right here, the Zohar drops the first huge secret. It teaches that upon this infinite, formless state of Tohu, a divine name was pressed into it, just like a seal into hot wax, and that name is Shaddai. Now, the sages explained that the name Shaddai comes from a phrase, Sha'amar le'olamo dai, which means, he who said to his world, enough. Shaddai is the principle of limitation. It's the divine act of drawing a line in the sand of infinity and saying, okay, this is the sandbox we're going to build in. It's the first act of governance, creating the container for everything else.
So, once Shaddai has defined that workspace, the next state starts to emerge, Bohu. Inside that now limited void, things begin to, coalesce. The Zohar pictures this as the appearance of unformed structures, like hollow rocks or empty vessels. These are the proto-shapes of reality, the very basic scaffolding of what will one day become existence. You have forms, but they're completely inert. They're empty. They have no energy, no purpose. It's like a 3D model with no textures, no lighting, and definitely no animation. Just the wireframe.
So how do you get these hollow forms moving? How do you activate them? Well, the Zohar assigns the divine name Tsevaot to this state of Bohu. Tsevaot is often translated as hosts or amis, and that's the perfect image. It is the great organizing principle. It takes all those empty shells floating around in Bohu and arranges them into these vast interconnected networks, these hosts. It's the force that assembles all the individual components into a functional system, just like a general organizing an army into legions and companies. It gives structure its purpose.
Now we get to the third state, Choshech, or darkness. And you have to pay close attention here because this is a really crucial point. In Kabbalah, darkness is not the absence of light. It is a substance all on its own. The Zohar calls it a powerful black fire, an active, contracting, dense energy. This is the raw material of what's called din, or judgment. It's the force that defines and separates and processes everything according to strict, unbending, inflexible rules.
Impulsing right at the heart of this black fire, the power governing this state of Choshech is the divine name Elohim. Now, this is one of the most common names for God in the entire Torah, and it's almost always linked to the attribute of Guvara, which means severity or strength, and Din, judgment. Elohim represents that aspect of the divine that operates through strict, unbreakable laws of cause and effect. It's literally the physics engine of reality. It's the processor that runs all the logic of creation.
And finally, woven through all of it, connecting everything, We have ruach, spirit, wind. This is the dynamic current that flows through the entire system. Think about it this way. If Tohu is the canvas, and Bohu is the rough sketch, and Choshech is the sharp black ink that defines all the lines, then ruach is the breath of the artist that makes the entire painting come alive. It's this luminous, life-giving energy that moves and connects and integrates and harmonizes all those other more static states. It's what hovers over the face of the waters, weaving it all together.
And the governing force of this ruach, the power that's inscribed on this incredible cosmic current, is the most sacred name of all, the four-letter name, YHVH. This name is always associated with Rachamim, with mercy, and with the Sephirah of Tiferet, which means beauty or harmony. It's the master name. It's the one that balances the contracting, strict force of Elohim with the expansive force of kindness. It is the ultimate integrator, the unifying principle that ensures the entire creation doesn't just collapse into a cold set of disconnected rules, but actually functions as a living, breathing, harmonious whole.
So, we have these four states and four governing names. But how do they actually work together? Well, here's where it gets really cool. We can translate this ancient mystical blueprint into a really powerful modern analogy. Let's think of it as a cosmic operating system. Let's look at creation not as a story that happened once, but as a multi-layered system architecture that's running right now. Okay, this right here is the absolute heart of our explainer today. Let's break down this cosmic OS layer by layer. First, you've got Tohu, which is governed by Shaddai. Its function is the boundary limiter. It's like setting the RAM and CPU limits for a program. This is linked to the Sephirah of Malkut, or kingdom, which makes perfect sense because Malkut is the final, defined realm where all that infinite potential has to land and take a concrete form. Next, you have Bohu, governed by Tsevaoth. This layer creates the distributed network. It takes those empty forms and organizes them into structured hosts. This maps beautifully to Netzach and Hod, the Sephirot that act like pipelines for structured energy to flow through the system. Then there's Choshech, governed by Elohim. This is your strict logic engine. This is the core processor running all the laws of nature, of causality. It's the domain of Gevura, severity, that attribute of unbending judgment. And finally, you have Ruach, governed by Yahweh. This is the harmonic integrator. It's like the kernel of the whole OS, balancing the strict logic of Elohim with mercy and flow. This ensures the system actually lives and breathes, which is the exact job of Tiferet, harmony, right at the center of the tree of life.
Okay, so that cosmic operating system analogy is pretty great for understanding the deep mechanics. But, there are other ways to visualize this whole process that might make it even more intuitive. So let's look at this divine architecture through a couple of different lenses, one for the gamer inside all of us and one for the engineer.
I want you to imagine creation as a massive video game with four huge zones you have to master. First, you enter Zone 1, the void of Tohu. It's an infinite world, no rules, no boundaries. To level up, you need the Shaddai power-up. Boom! You now have the ability of boundary setting. You can define the playing field. Next, you enter Zone 2, the forms of Bohu. The world is full of these empty, static objects. Here, you unlock the name Tsevaot, which gives you the godlike ability of structure building. You can now arrange everything into cities and ecosystems and networks. Then you reach Zone 3, the black fire of Choshech. Okay, you've built stuff, but now you need rules. By mastering the name Elohim, you gain the power of rule enforcement. You can program the laws of physics, of consequence, of cause and effect. And finally, you arrive at Zone 4, the river of Ruach. The world is built, it has rules, but it's cold and static. By attaining the ultimate name Yavav, you unlock the final ability, life flow. You can breathe spirit and harmony and life into your entire creation. Game 1.
So, you see, two incredible ways of looking at the exact same process. On one hand, you have the gamer, leveling up and progressively unlocking these cosmic abilities to build a world from scratch. And on the other, you have the engineer, designing this complex, multi-layered system where all these different protocols have to interact perfectly. But either way you slice it, the core idea is the same. The Zohar is revealing a highly structured, incredibly functional, and seriously elegant system for bringing a cosmos into being. It's nothing less than divine engineering.
Okay, let's bring this all home. We've defined all the parts, we've looked at the architecture, we've even played the game. Now let's just step back and watch this incredible unified system in action and see how it moves step by step from absolute formlessness to a living, breathing cosmos.
Here's the whole process flow in its beautiful, simple glory.
The operation kicks off when divine will, expressing itself as Shaddai, contains the infinite potential of Tohu. It draws the circle and says, creation happens here and no further. Then, operating as Seviat, it takes the unformed shapes of Bohu and assembles them, connecting the dots and building the vast, intricate scaffolding of reality. Next, as Elohim, it flips the switch. It activates the laws inside that substantive darkness of Choshech. The engine starts to run. Every single interaction is processed according to its precise, unbending logic. And finally, as Yat HVH, it just suffuses the entire structure with the spirit of Ruach. It breathes harmony and life and mercy into the system, turning what could be a cold, calculating machine into a warm, vibrant, living cosmos.
So the most crucial point to take away from all of this is this. Tohu, Bohu, Choshech, and Ruach are not just stages that happened a long time ago and then vanished. They are 4 fundamental dimensions of reality that are always present, always active. And Shaddai, Tavaot, Elohim, and Yejva are not 4 different gods vying for control. They are 4 modes of operation, 4 distinct protocols of a single, unified divine will, and each one has a very specific job in the ongoing project of transforming chaos into a cosmos.
And that really brings us to the final thought. The mystics teach that the macrocosm, the universe, is always reflected in the microcosm, in us. The universe is built inside of you. So if these are the 4 fundamental forces that structure all of reality, what are they structuring inside of you right now? Where in your life do you need to apply the power of Shaddai and set a clear boundary? Where do you need Savao to come in and organize your personal chaos? Where do you need the strict logic of Elohim to see consequences clearly without emotion? And where, maybe above all, do you need that harmonizing spirit of IHVH to breathe life and mercy into it all?
Thank you for joining us for this complete journey through the Pardes. We hope these ancient truths help you and your family improve your own dimensions this week. If you enjoyed this full chapter deep dive, please like, subscribe, and share which part of the journey touched your soul in the comments. We'll see you in the next chapter.